Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to open the October 3rd, 2011 meeting of the Currituck Board of Commissioners. And to start off with, I'd like to begin with the invocation by Reverend Scott Culbertson of Moyock, and then I'll have the Scouts from Troop 182 come up and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance after that. So if you please stand. Thank you.
I believe that God has a plan for people, and God has a plan for places. And if you check your history books, this part of the world was part of a land grant that King William gave to a group called Huguenots back in the late 1600s. As it turned out, the Huguenots wound up settling at the headwaters of the James River just west of Richmond, Virginia. But I wonder what might have happened had the Huguenots been here. We believe that there is a plan for places and a plan for people. Thank God for you for answering the call that God has on your lives and the plan that He has for your lives. May God's plan for this place, Currituck County, be fulfilled. Will you join me in prayer? Father, we come to you tonight in the powerful and precious name of Jesus, and we thank you for the opportunity that we have to gather in this place. We pray, Father, that your will would be done, that you would shine forth brightly in this neck of the woods, in this spectacular and special place called Currituck County. As we are entering into the fall feast, Father, we pray that your people would meet you at these assigned times, at these appointed times, as we celebrate Yom Teruah, as we anticipate Yom Kippur. And Father, as we look forward to Sukkot, may you be present, very real to your people here in these days. Thank you for this commission, Father. Thank you for their commitment to our county. Thank you for their commitment to you. And Lord, I pray that they will listen to you and that you will guide and direct every step and every decision that they make. Bless those who are on the committees. Bless those who are called to bring reports tonight. And Father, we ask that you would always and everywhere be glorified. In the name of Yeshua, Jesus, we pray. Amen.
Amen. If the Scouts from Troop 182 would come up and join Reverend Culbertson and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. We'll be recognizing them a little later on the agenda now.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. I should have said Reverend Vic Culbertson. I was corrected by Commissioner Etheridge. My staff here lets me down sometimes with the details. I'm John Moore, of course, the Vice Chairman. Chairman Idlet is dealing with some health issues this week, and we ask you all to keep him in your thoughts and prayers as well. And we hoping to have a speedy recovery and be back soon. Okay, on to the first item on the agenda, which is approval of the agenda, and I think we have an amendment to it. So.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to move that we approve the agenda with the exception of item 8 and continue that to a further meeting.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Okay. Next item is public comment. The first item I have on public comment, the first person signed up, is Deputy Morris of, I guess it's Fire and EMS Services for Currituck. And they're going to talk about breast cancer awareness. He's brought some young ladies with him who are responsible for. Let's all show off our shirts, guys. We've got these beautiful pink T-shirts for breast cancer awareness. And I'd just like to say, too, I wore my pink shirt tonight because my wife is also a breast cancer patient. So it's something we're all very concerned about. Deputy Chief Morris, go ahead.
Thank you, sir. We'd like to thank you all for the time to speak before you tonight. October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And through the initiative of several members of our department, they put together and went to the chief with the proposal to allow us to do pink T-shirts for the month to support that cause. They were able to get together with the Outer Banks Relief Foundation. So those the funds that are collected will go to Currituck citizens who have breast cancer and to assist them with their needs during that time. The shirts that have been put at your seats were purchased anonymously, and we will be, as you can see, we'll be in the pink T-shirts for the month of October. And currently, along with our department, Mayock, Crawford, and Lower Currituck also are participating with us in it. And they to date have sold over 300 shirts and have raised over $2,200 for breast cancer. And this is Cheryl King, Kelly Johnson, and Jennifer Ayers that are joining me up here tonight. And we thank you for your time.
Well, thank you very much for coming, and thank you for your efforts.
Thank you.
Y'all have a good evening.
Mr. Chairman, also in the spirit of the Currituck fire, this past Saturday I was invited up to the Hampton Lodge campground for the second annual Fireman's Challenge. Is that the right name?
Yes, sir.
And the volunteer fire departments from each part of the county were up there, and they had a competition, and there's a big trophy. And the winning department gets to keep it for a year. And I think last year the county got the trophy last year, but this year Crawford volunteer fire department got it, and it was a great event. I got there late because of the wreck that was there, which made soccer an hour late, which made me an hour late getting there. But it was a wonderful competition they had. They all worked well together, and they were really putting in the competitions, and it was a really nice event for them to get that competition, the camaraderie, and plus the training that goes with it. So I just wanted to recognize them for that effort they did this past weekend. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, thank you. All right. The second person signed up to speak tonight is Josh Bass, who's president of the Chamber of Commerce, and I think you're going to address FEMA.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman. I had an official from FEMA stop by the Currituck Chamber of Commerce office this afternoon, and she said the deadline to file for FEMA for businesses and homeowners is October 31st. That date may shift a little bit, but if y'all, as you're going about the county and your districts, could help us get the word out that anybody that was affected would need to file by October 31st, we would appreciate that. We are trying to get that word out. Luckily, we did not have a great deal of damage in Currituck from Hurricane Irene, but some individuals and businesses were greatly affected, so we certainly want to make sure that they know that that deadline is quickly approaching. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question, please?
Certainly.
Talked to some people in Walnut Island, and they told me they went to the FEMA office, and FEMA told them they were out of money.
That has not been anything that has come through our office. They are actively telling people to register.
Well, again, I've had, not doubting you, I'm just saying, I had a lady today tell me that I sent her up there. I've had several people in Walnut Island tell me that I directed them to go up there, and they said they were out of money. So, you know, maybe it's something we need to look into. I don't know. I guess
And if you want to call our office or have those people get in touch with us, we certainly will investigate that as well and find out what we can do about it. Thank you.
In conjunction with that, I know we had a notice posted this past week. The Albemarle Commission has been administering a national emergency grant which will employ folks who are either unemployed as a result of the storm or underemployed as a result of the storm or displaced because of the storm if they're interested in doing cleanup work. And it's actually going to be administered through the Albemarle Commission as employees of that commission. Mr. Scanlon, do you have any information regarding that as far as cooperation with the county and commission?
I actually don't. I can get some information for you, though.
All right, so and I think if anybody has any interest, if you contact the Albemarle Commission or contact the clerk for the commissioners, I will make sure Ms. Keene has that information. Now, the public comment period is time for anybody that has any item of interest to them to address commissioners. If there's anybody else who would like to speak that did not sign up, this is your time. Seeing no one, we'll move on to item number 3. And it gives me great pleasure to ask my colleagues to join me down front for the recognition of some Currituck citizens that have served us long and well. Mr. and Ms. Brickhouse, if you'd come join us up front. And Earl, if you don't mind, Ms. Edith, I'm supposed to give her a hug.
That's all right. That's all right. She don't miss him hugs.
Come on over here.
I love you all.
Come on over and stand in front of these folks.
And I
It's pretty up there.
Come on up here.
Y'all can probably hear
Right
me.
up
Y'all
here,
can
dear.
get over there
Now
in
you
front of
gotta
the
turn around and look at
microphone. I got everybody over
I
here.
gotta turn
Turn around and look at everybody.
This plaque was
love you all.
is presented in recognition of Edith and Earl Brickhouse for their many years of service to the citizens of Currituck County as delegates to the NC Senior Tar Heel Legislature. And this is 2011, this was awarded to them. And we're going to miss you. We've really enjoyed hearing all of the things that you've experienced and done for us as part of your work for that.
Thank you
I
very
present
much.
this to you.
Thank you.
On behalf of my wife and myself, thank you. Thank you, Curtis.
Thank you, Earl. And I can tell you they've done a lot of traveling on behalf of the seniors of Currituck County back and forth to Raleigh. And speaking of seniors, most of my board members have been on your behalf. So they've really done a good job.
Thank you very much.
Speak for yourself. Yes.
God bless you.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks for the kind words.
It's okay.
One day you'll be here.
I hope so.
Yeah, you hope so.
I like these fun jobs. Item number 4 on the agenda, we have recognition of Boy Scout Troop 182 from Pillmore United Methodist Church. If you folks would come up and introduce the young men to us and tell us what's been going on with Troop 182.
No need to be shy now.
A lot of us were Boy Scouts once.
Only 10,000 people watching.
This is Troop 182, missing a few of my boys.
Come get closer to
One of them just made Eagle last weekend.
Excuse me, sir, if you don't mind, would you mind stepping over closer to the mic so they'll be able to pick you up on TV? Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but go ahead.
As I was saying, this is my troop. I'm Scoutmaster Dave. I have my Assistant Scoutmaster Scott and Brett Connors. This is Chaz Connors. This is Chris. This is John, Nick, Alex, and Kyle. And we're missing Scotty and Chris. Scotty just eagled. My stepson eagled. And we've got some other ones that are spread out. One of them's going to college now. We're going to be doing a pumpkin chunking at the end of the month. November, we're going to Blackstone to do Merit Badge Weekend. We try to get out every weekend. September, we did Fall Wildlife Festival, yes. And coming up, we've got, what is that, Silver Bells? Yeah, that's what, December? Yeah. So we're out and about. If y'all got youngins, we start out, what, 12 years old? Bring them on. We'd love to have them. Thank you.
Thank you for coming. Good work, guys. Item number 5, and gosh, this is getting to be an annual thing, recognition of our tourism department for their sterling work again this year.
They're all being shy tonight. Don't want to get up. Thank you for having us. I'm Diane Nordstrom, Director of Tourism, and I'd like to, before saying anything, introduce you to the staff real quick. This is Leanne Walton. She's our Visitor Center, Welcome Center Manager. Michelle Ellis, she's our Public Relations Coordinator. Stuart Chamberlain hiding in the back, who is our wonderful webmaster, our e-marketing specialist. Irina Cachetti, and she's the one who's our Marketing Program Manager. Clayton Howard, also in the back row, our newest events planner, and then Judy Vassar, who's a visitor relations coordinator. So just wanted to share some really good news with you guys. I actually went back and looked, and in the past 6 years, we've won 17 awards from the Destination Marketing Association of North Carolina. And that's the big organization for North Carolina that's good networking, it's good education opportunities for us. And every year they have an annual awards program that we can submit entries. So this year we won 3 awards, and I'll share with you what those were. The awards are called the Destination Marketing Achievement Awards. We have to compete in the large budget category because our budget is of the large size. However, our budget isn't as large as a lot of the destinations we compete against, because we compete against Charlotte, Raleigh, Chapel Hill, Durham. Some of them have budgets that are twice or 3 times the size of ours. And I'm pleased to say that I kind of took mental note during the awards, and we won more awards than Raleigh or Charlotte did this year. So I don't know. I'm taking notes. But what we won, the guys they're holding up various awards and the entries to the awards. Judy is holding up our wedding and event planner that won first place, a platinum award in the category of niche marketing. So it's basically categories for not your visitor guide, but different publications that you do. And we got first place in the state for that. That is a cooperative effort. Irina really heads that up, but this takes the work of a lot of people in our department, because it takes writing, it takes finding the information on our wedding businesses, proofreading. It's also a lot of work from local photographers who donate their work and let us use to put the guide together. So it was a very pretty guide, and we won first place for that. What Irina's holding is a series of wedding ads that she designed, and Irina is solely responsible for this next platinum award that we won, and it was for graphic design for group travel and wedding being the group. Those ads are just beautiful. When she showed me she was working on them, I thought, oh my gosh, these are really nice ads, very pretty. The photography in those were actually done by Brooke Mayo, one of our local photographers here in the county. And when they called out the award for that one, I was getting a little nervous, because they said that there were so many entries in that category that they were going to present additional awards this year. And they gave out 2 second place awards. And I thought, oh, wow. Could we win the platinum? And they said, and the platinum award goes to Currituck Outer Banks. So I was like, Irina, go get your award. Good for you. First in the state. Stuart is holding up a plaque here that shows he's hiding in the corner. Come up, Stuart. That shows the landing page of our website. And Stuart is the one who heads up our website and our e-marketing, internet marketing initiatives, and we took second place in the state for that. Durham actually took the first place award for that. So we beat a lot of big dogs out. He does a fantastic job with that. That includes all of our social networking, our mobile site, our everything that has to do with online marketing, QR codes, all of it. So all of that as a package won second place in the state. And these are the awards that the guys are holding up, the trophies that we got for them. So anyway, I want to really thank the staff. They work really hard. They put 110% in everything they do, and I think it shows, and I think it shows proud for Currituck County. Just to give you other little quick on a side note, the summer seems to have gone very well. Even though we had a hurricane, it seems like we have picked up a lot of business from people who were going to be staying in Ocracoke and Hatteras. So I think our summer numbers are going to be pretty strong. We also had an opportunity a couple of weeks ago to host the Assistant Secretary of Commerce in charge of tourism, Lynn Menges, some of her staff, and some of their new ad agency representatives. They came here to Currituck and spent an afternoon with us. We took them on a wild horse tour. We showed them around Corolla, and as a result, Assistant Secretary Menges is looking at now making the wild horses one of the iconic images for North Carolina, along with the Biltmore State, Grandfather Mountain, Cape Hatteras Lighthouse. That bodes very well for us if that comes to be. As a matter of fact, a few days later, we got a phone call from the State Division of Tourism that they're going to send a photographer and a film crew here in the middle of this month to come do more shooting in Corolla. So they've taken it serious to really promote Currituck. Now, how that benefits us, That's a lot of free advertising. The State Division has a $9 million advertising budget. And Josh Bass, your chamber president, is now on that board. So I think Josh being on that board has helped Currituck County out a lot. So I think from that we're going to get a lot of free advertising across the state, the nation, and international. So they do a lot of international advertising as well. So there's big things happening for Currituck. We have some travel writers from the UK coming here this week. We have German radio station folks coming here. All of a sudden, Currituck got on the map. So that's what we've been working for the last 6 years, and I think we're finally getting there. But anyway, thank you again for letting us come here, and good job to these guys.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask a question?
Right.
Is there any truth to the rumor we're going to have to add a room on the visitor center to hold all these awards?
Yes, absolutely. At least a display case.
I understand Commissioner O'Neill actually is building a larger mantle in his house to house them.
You'll take them with you? You might have to fight them for it.
Trophies well, since you segue into that, I have been on the tourism board, and they do a wonderful job. The tourism board, the staff, and a lot of people take it for granted sometimes or don't realize that the reason we have a 32-cent tax rate is because of the tourism in this county. The reason that we have the school system facilities and buildings that we have is because of the tourism in this county. The reason we have the recreation facilities that we have is because of the absentee homeowners that require no services in this county, and this Board of Commissioners needs to make sure they remember that when they're making decisions, because it can transfer the tax burden from the Outer Banks to the mainland if the Board of Commissioners does not take care of our tourism industry.
Mr. Chairman, I'd also like to thank Diane and her staff. I know how hard they work, and as a resident of Currituck County, thank you. Thank you for your efforts, your time, and I know you guys work weekends, and I think everybody in Currituck County, I think it's 23,000 people, should take their hat off to our tourism department. So thank you for all you do for us to keep our life and our quality of life and our taxes and everything else that we've got where it is today. We owe it all to you guys and your team. Good job, and I applaud you. I really do. Thank you very much.
Well, we thank you for your support as well. You guys fund us, you give us the money, and would you say a few minutes about getting out of the way and letting us...
That's what I was going to say. The sign of a good manager is to hire the best people you can and then get out of the way and let them do the job.
That's always been my practice. Hire the good guys and just let them go.
Right.
So, yeah. But thank you for your support. We appreciate it very much.
Thank you. Thank all of you, too, for the work you've done.
Thanks. Thank you, John.
Okay, we got to do some work now. That was the fun part. Item 6, public hearing and action. PB 11-07, Bissell Professional Group. A request to amend Chapter 4 of the Unified Development Ordinance to modify the age restriction language for the Planned Adult Retirement Overlay District, parentheses RET. And Mr. Woody, would you like to lead off with our case for that?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to do a brief overview of this text amendment request before Mr. Bissell gets up and presents the rest of the information. Currituck County has a Planned Adult Retirement Overlay District, and that's basically a zoning district that establishes that the folks that live in there, the permanent residents, must be at least 55 years of age. There's some exceptions that allows people that are living or visiting or staying in short terms to not be that age, but generally your permanent residents have to be 55 years old or older. That zoning district exists in two spots. It's been applied in two places in the county. One is at the Waterside Villages development in Grandy, and the other place that exists is an undeveloped or vacant piece of land off of Spot Road. And I'll get back to that in a second. What's before you tonight is a amendment to the UDO that's been proposed by Bissell Professional Group, Mr. Mark Bissell, who's here tonight. And what that amendment does is it proposes to amend the RET overlay. Instead of requiring that permanent residents be 55 years of age or older, that through this ordinance that the developer targets or intends to target the community for folks 55 years of age and older. And what that is doing, basically, it's taking the zoning requirement that you be that age, and it's really transferring the burden of that or the administration of that to the homeowners association. So again, the idea is that the zoning ordinance says that these developments are targeted for folks that are 55 years of age or older, but leaves the burden of enforcing that or promoting that to the homeowners association. Now, what we've got in Currituck County, we've got this zoning district that exists in two places. Again, Mill Land or Spot Road is a undeveloped piece of land that there's no neighborhood there. It's never been executed. There's no retirement community. In Grandy, we have the Waterside Villages subdivision, which is platted. Not all of it, but a lot of the lots are platted, and you've got some construction, some single-family dwellings, and a couple of condo buildings that are out there. In that particular development, the RET overlay was applied, and then development began several years ago. And what happened is, since that was a campground initially, it was an RV park, it was allowed to convert to this RET overlay and maintain some higher densities and a mixed-use type development. There's actually some commercial parcels that are at the front of this development. From our perspective as staff, we've looked at this, and regardless if Waterside Village is a age-restricted community or whether it is not, it is supported by the land use plan. And what I'll point to is, in this particular area, Grandy, our land use plan designates it as full service. What full service means is that the county has infrastructure available, is in a position to provide services where we as the county can support higher densities and mixed-use development. So from a planning perspective and from a land use plan application, whether this development is 55 years of age or older or not, whether that's enforced by the county or the homeowners associations, does not have a negative impact or does not cause an inconsistency with the land use plan. So from our perspective, as a land use perspective, we do not have any issues with whether it's age restricted or not. So from that standpoint, staff has recommended approval of this request based on the land use plan policies that are in place. I will also note this went to the planning board at their June meeting. During that planning board meeting, the planning board also recommended approval of this amendment. And with that, that will conclude my presentation. I can certainly answer any questions the board may have regarding this amendment request. Thank you.
Any questions for Mr. Woody?
I have one question, Mr. Woody. If the Board of Commissioners removes this restriction from the zoning, it still doesn't change the fact that this is a 55 and older community, does it?
That is correct. That is included in the covenants, and to remove that is something that will have to be worked out among the community.
The community and the
bank or the owners or whoever. Yeah. No.
So our action will not affect, if it were to be approved, would not affect the fact that that's still a 55 and older community.
No, it just puts the burden of enforcement, the full burden of enforcement on the homeowners association or whoever is responsible if they wish to continue it. However, if they wish not to continue that, then they have the option to amend the restrictive covenants and move in a different direction.
Can I ask a question of that, perhaps direct it to the attorney? On this same issue, Mr. Bissell stated that the majority of lots are owned by the bank, which gives the bank the voting rights. Now, it bothers me if why change it here when it's going to go to the people themselves? If I understand, is the Property Owners Association, is it formed, is it active, are they here? That's my question. I mean, has that land been turned over? I mean, is there an active, homeowners association here?
I don't know the answer. I don't know the answer to that question.
And it says that you have to have over 50% of the lots are sold before you have an active, or before they actually dedicate or turn over the control of the property or something like that to the homeowners association.
I believe that's correct.
Is that correct? And so if 50% of them haven't been sold, then the bank, technically, they don't have a homeowners association. Is that correct?
Or they don't have, I guess there's no requirement that the developer, and I guess now the successor to the developer, convey common property to the Property Owners Association.
All right, another question, if it says the voting rights, if I own two lots, do I get two votes in a Property Owners Association meeting?
It depends upon how that is provided in the Property Owner Association documents.
So what I'm trying to get to is there's people who have invested money already in their lots and homes there, and they did it knowing that this was an age-restricted community. Now, what happens to their rights? We're saying that once we do this, then they also would have to rewrite their covenants?
They're going to have to rewrite the covenants. Also, I think there's another interest, legal interest, that Wachovia and any other bank or individual that now owns lots there are going to have to deal with these property owners if they're going to change the scheme of development. When persons have bought property, they have been certain things have been represented to them with regard to the property. I'm sure they were shown brochures. It was discussed with them the type of community this was intended to be, all to induce them to buy a lot in that community. So they have certain rights and expectations that the community will continue to be the type of community that they were told it was going to be at the time they bought their lots. So those are going to be some other issues that Wachovia in particular and any other bank or person that owns lots that want to develop it some other way are going to have to resolve with property owners that are currently there.
Well, could we say we're putting the cart before the horse? Maybe the bank should work with people who've already invested in those lots down there and in their homes and everything, and then come to us and say, all right, we want to remove the age restriction.
And that's up to this board how it wants to proceed. There's certainly nothing that precludes you from acting on this matter and adopting your ordinances as you see fit. That, of course, apply countywide, although we understand it would apply to this particular situation as well.
Thank you.
Any other question from Mr. Woody?
Well, I would like to say on that note, the other property that's affected by this has been trying to get the board to remove this restriction since I can remember. The one on Spot Road, they also have said that they can't market the property because there's no market for 55 and older age-restricted communities now since times have changed, and that they're sitting there with property they can't do anything with. I mean, they can't market it because of the age restriction, so it's more than just this one property that would be affected. The other property wants it removed. I do know that because that developer contacted the county probably 3 or 4 years ago trying to have this restriction removed before the bottom fell out. But now that the bottom's fallen out, I mean, this is seen as a real hindrance to the other property as well.
I have a question. Right now, who, I think I know, but I want to know for sure, who is maintaining, is the bank paying their share to keep the property maintained, grass mowed, cleaned up, pool being taken care of? Are they paying their share? As far as my concern is if we can't reach an agreement that the property could, the bank will still own it, but do they have the right to walk away from it and say we're not contributing anymore to maintain the grounds and things like that? Do they have that right?
I don't know if I know the answer to the question if they have the right to, but I'll say my understanding is, and I'd like for Mr. Bissell to confirm this, but my understanding is the bank continues to contribute to the upkeep and maintenance of the common areas and common facilities.
Let me open the public hearing then and get Mr. Bissell to speak on that part, if you will, and then I have Mr. Battaglia from, I think, Currituck on the Sound, who will speak as well. So we'll open the public hearing, and Mr. Bissell, would you like to address any of these questions?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As Mr. Woody said, the intent is for the ordinance to be changed so that a planned adult retirement community may be age-restricted or age-targeted at the direction of the developer. And then the association documents the restrictive covenants that would establish the restrictions or the targets for the development, and then the community association would be responsible to manage and enforce the restrictions that are in effect for the community. And I think that that the association is actually set up now to do those things, so that's not really a significant change. The main change is that it would be targeted rather than restricted. And the goal then is to take the county out of the middle so that the developer and landowners and banks and so forth will be dealing directly with the residents on these issues. We understand that some of the residents are disappointed in having bought into the community, and it hasn't been successful. And we know that there have been investments that have been greatly reduced in value as a result of the economy and the fact that the project hasn't been successful. And we really believe, and the marketing people we've talked with believe that those conditions will just continue to get worse unless the owner of the property is able to market it without the age restriction. That it has, we're told, very, very little value. But the answer to the question about the contribution, it's our understanding that Wachovia is actually paying the lion's share of the maintenance and upkeep for those facilities right now, and you know, they're kind of paying it into what appears to be a losing cause with the age restriction in place, because they just haven't gotten any interest at all in the property at any price. You know, Waterside Villages is committed to continuing to maintain the community to its present standard, so long as there is an opportunity to recover. They're seeing an opportunity down the road to recover some of the investment, and they've made that commitment to the homeowners there. But I think the main issue here is taking the county out of the middle so that Wachovia then still needs to deal directly with the homeowners on the lifting and the modification of these restrictions, and to satisfy them to the best of their ability. At the time that the special use permit was issued, there was a problem with school capacity in the county. I think was the main reason for that age restriction being so important in that special use permit. And it's my understanding that that issue has been resolved, and this would therefore not have a negative impact on public facilities, adequate public facilities for Currituck County. As Mr. Woody stated, the land use plan supports the change. The staff has recommended it. We had a unanimous vote of support from the planning board, and we think that this is really an opportunity for the county to take a failed project and turn it into something that would have an opportunity to recover.
I have a question, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
Yes, sir.
In the planning board discussion, and I think some people that live at Waterside are here, and you can refute what this says. Said Mr. Bissell stated that the report he saw stated that the majority of the residents were okay with the request.
No, what I stated was that the majority of the ownership interests were in support of the request, but I also stated, which was picked up in the article that was in the newspaper, that it was my understanding that there were residents that were opposed to the request.
Okay, but it says here the majority of the residents were okay with the request. This is what it says at the planning board in our agenda. So the majority of the residents that currently live there, the way I understand this, the majority of the residents that are currently living there are okay with the request that you're trying to get tonight.
I don't know the answer to that question, because that wasn't
okay. Well, I'm just reading
the statement that I made. I'm sorry.
Well, we have some of them here tonight, so I think
right,
we're
okay,
probably here.
I'm just reading what it says. Planning board.
I understand. Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question. Mr. Bissell, for the targeting marketing that you're doing, if this age restriction is lifted, what market are you looking at? I've heard, affordable housing, different scenarios. What is the developer? What's the vision for the developer?
I actually haven't seen the vision yet. They would be really looking for a developer who has that vision to market the property to. The bank itself is not coming up with the vision for the future, but they know that the vision that the previous developer had doesn't work, so that's what they're trying to have an opportunity to change.
As a new commissioner, we as a board have a say in what goes in there, what we approve.
I don't know, from a zoning standpoint, if we just make this text amendment, what will be the remaining status?
From a zoning perspective, you're somewhat limited on what you can do because you've got lots that have been platted already. So basically, if the developer and the property owners or owners association are able to work out some sort of agreement to remove or the age restriction or have an age targeted, then as far as how it develops, it's basically just going to develop with the pattern that's already approved, which is primarily single-family lots with some condo buildings at the rear and some commercial at the front. So you've kind of got a blueprint for what happens already, quite frankly.
Yeah, I haven't heard anything about any significant modifications to the development scheme, but the...
Mr. O'Neill?
How many homes are currently built in that development?
I'm just going to guess that there's about 25.
There's 25 homes current. Let's say it's, like, give or take, 25. How many residents actually live there?
I think that there are, what I've heard is I think there are around maybe 8 or 10 occupied dwellings there.
What's happening with those homes that are just sitting there?
I think they're being maintained by banks at the moment.
I understand that, but over a course, a period of time when no one living in them, what's going to happen to those homes if some type of an agreement is not reached?
They're going to continue to deteriorate.
Will that make it easier to market?
I would guess that it would make it more difficult to market. You know, I've heard numbers like $150,000 a year is what it takes to maintain the place to its current level. And
how about the condos? How many condos are currently built?
There are 10 completed units in the first building, and there are 10 uncompleted units in the second building. And
what's happening to the uncompleted and the ones that are unoccupied?
The uncompleted ones are just sitting there. I think they've got it
what's
closed
going,
in, but
what's going to happen if something doesn't change?
It's just going to sit there and deteriorate.
What's interesting, this past winter, in the unoccupied top 4 units in the center of the existing condo building, a pipe burst and flooded the entire top floor. So I had a substantial amount of damage to go because there was nobody there to know that it happened.
Well, that's why I'm asking. That it's not going to improve, and the people that are there are going to be surrounded by a bunch of dilapidated homes and buildings. Even the clubhouse at some point, even if Wachovia or Wells Fargo is maintaining it, if it's not getting used or anything, it's going to deteriorate. Is that not correct?
Absolutely.
Now, so far as the people that are there that have an age-restricted preference, why couldn't Wachovia or Wells Fargo, whichever they are, I guess they're Wells Fargo now, why couldn't they go in and build another clubhouse and have one that would remain age-restricted for the 55 and above to give them an option, whichever, whether it's the old one or the new one, but you could keep part of the area age-restricted and not allow anyone under 55 in some of the amenities, to allay some of the concerns, because I know what the concerns are. I had a couple of friends that lived in there, the Menards. They no longer live there, but that was one of the concerns, was having, if you started mixing the younger folks and the seasoned citizens that don't want the younger folks in there, why couldn't you create another amenity package as an incentive to allow part of it to remain somewhat age-restricted?
Well, you might be able to do that.
Because I know there's a plan to do some more amenities out there.
Mm-hmm. There is. There are additional amenities that were planned. But, for the 250 home sites that were approved there, there is a fairly expensive amenity package that, between what's there and what was planned that hasn't been constructed yet, as to whether you could build yet a second amenity package and afford through the due structure to operate and maintain those facilities to a standard. I'm not sure. Another possibility might be to restrict the times of use of the facilities that are there, so that at some times it would be restricted to 55 and over, and at other times it would be opened up to
I just know if, and I'll be quiet with this, I just know if those condos are allowed to continue to deteriorate and those homes don't have people in them, the people that are there now are going to lose more value. They're not going to gain value. And, and that's sad for them that could happen to them. But I also understand their feelings about it, too. So I was trying to help give you an olive branch you could float out there, but you haven't grabbed it yet.
Let me comment about one of the situations, too, that I think everybody there recognizes. The existing covenants require that the primary resident of each dwelling facility be 55 or over, but children under 18 can live there up to 90 days in any given year. So for all intents and purposes, if the place were fully populated out with sets of grandparents and 250 units, there's not anything that would prevent there being 250 sets of grandkids running around the place all summer when they're out of school. And, of course, the rest of the year, they're in school, and it really wouldn't make any difference anyway. So the fact is now it's not a situation where it's restricted from the children being there. It's just that the covenants don't allow them as permanent residents. And looking at it realistically from a marketing standpoint, talking at length with the bank and some of the real estate brokers, the actual fact is that the Grandy area is not a huge attractant to young families because there's not anything for them to do there. I mean, the other big community there, Carolina Club, no sales are taking place there because people won't move there with no jobs. So one of the things I think they were trying to do here was at least make a situation such that a developer might look at it feasibly, and if so, then let the developer come in with a plan for what they're going to market to. Wachovia has stated time and time again, they're not developers and they're not a real estate company. They're not going to do anything but see if they can't find somebody that'll come buy the whole thing and take it from there and go. And, of course, there are two other large entities, too. I think Wachovia is the largest of the property owners, but the Resolution Company of the former Bank of Currituck is also a large holder there, and then there's another investment company from Charlottesville that has a block of lots as well.
Mr. Chairman, I think we've got some residents here. Can we?
That's what I was going to do when we finish with Mr. Bissell. So
I have a question or two for Mr. Bissell. In the planning board minutes we have, it says that Wells Fargo / Wachovia had a community meeting. Do you know what the results of that meeting was that night?
Yeah, that took place several months ago, and it's my understanding, I wasn't present at the meeting, but I understood that a number of the residents were opposed to the lifting of the age restriction. I think that there have been some further meetings and discussions, and I have been told that the community is somewhat more receptive now than they were some months ago. But again, I don't know that firsthand.
Has the bank made any offers to, like, maybe buy them out if they didn't want to lose their age restriction, or has there been any olive branch by the bank to them? Because I asked several months ago that the community be worked with and some resolution arrived at before we got here to our table tonight.
That has been discussed. That was discussed at one of the community meetings that I did attend, and to my knowledge, the bank is really not in a position to be able to make a cash offer to buy people out. I think Wells Fargo has taken over a failed bank that made the loan on this property. I think they're being watched very closely on what they put back into this community without any, at this point, anything on the horizon that's showing anyone that they might come out of it.
And I take it there's no one here tonight from the bank to answer any question we might have.
No, the bank's not present tonight.
If no objections, I'd like to go ahead and let some of the folks from Waterside speak. Ms. Battaglia, who's from, I think, Soundside Estates. Are you here? Oh, back in the back. Okay. You want to come up and speak? And do some of you folks from Waterside, John or Alan, any of y'all want to speak? Okay. Well, let me go ahead and let him.
I just wanted to let it be known that the majority of the people...
Tom, if you might give your name and address, please, for the record.
Tom Battaglia, Soundside Estates in Grandy. But the majority of the people in Soundside Estates are against it, the age restriction, because what we're concerned with is we don't want a bunch of tract homes put in the back of us, lowering our property values. I mean, in this time now, I understand the banks are hurting for money, but the people, we've already lost property value, as has everybody else. But if we end up with tract homes and low rent housing in the condos, then our property values are just shot right down the tubes. But then there's also the question of traffic, which this was all taken into consideration supposedly, and that was the reason. Another reason for 55 was the traffic problem that would be cut to a minimum. If you only had 2 people in the household, you would only have 1 or possibly 2 vehicles per household. Now, if you open that up and take that age restriction and end up with 4 per household, anybody that lives in Grandy on a weekend in the summer knows that you're going to just start counting the accidents on the outside of Waterside Village, because it's impossible to get in and out of the location. And that needs to be taken into consideration. And as far as your question as to whether, when the planning board okayed everything, I don't think the planning board knew that there was a number of people opposed to this. As the man stated at the one meeting we had, he had no idea that the people hadn't been notified about a meeting. So we were kind of left in the dark on everything. But at where we're sitting right now is I have condos that are to be built directly behind my home. And if there was 55 years, I fought it back then, and I intend to fight it all the way to the end on this one, because I'll now have a 3-story condo built approximately 50 yards from my back door. And, you know, as far as what they've put up as far as protecting the property, and that the fence has been down for I don't know how long now, that supposedly blocks off Waterside Village from Soundside Estates. So it's you know, I mean, it's we're basically against it because we don't see any good coming. The property was zoned for 2 people per residence, if I'm not mistaken, as far as what they've zoned those lots to, and we're able to cut it down to. So what happens then? You know, if that's still zoned the same way, is the zoning going to change once they drop the age restriction, or is that going to stay the same? You know, there's a whole lot of questions that we have that are.
Can I ask a question, please?
Go ahead.
You're against lifting their age restriction.
Right. Well, that's the only thing I have to fight right now.
Okay, I understand. And I'm just trying to, because I live in Grandy.
Okay.
You said there used to be a fence back there, and it's fallen in, whatever?
Yeah, there's a fence that runs up. In fact, it's behind the where the new septic area is or whatever. That's a section of it, probably 20 foot long. It's just been laying over. It's been laying over for quite a while.
Did the original developer put up that fence?
Yes.
Does it concern you that things like the fence or the grass or the buildings deteriorated starts to affect your property and your property values? And I think, based on where personally I've talked to people, that their property values are pretty much at the bottom, you know, and it concerns me that you have a concern for property values, but we've got a fence that's fallen down and nobody's fixing it, and we've got a building full of condos that are sitting there, nothing but studs, that pipes are bursting, and we have to figure out a way that there's a win-win. And I think what concerns me is sitting there, and we're going to hear a lot of different, opinions and ideas, but we have to come up with an idea, you do, and Wachovia does, to where there's a win-win. And I think the county is in a position where we want Wachovia or Wells Fargo to work with the people there. It just concerns me that this thing is going downhill, and I don't know how, at some point in time, like Commissioner Neal said, at some point in time, it gets to a point of no return that you just bulldoze the whole thing, and then that, we're not going anywhere.
Well, when the weather gets cold and those homes start staying empty, we're going to get some new neighbors in there, and they're probably not going to be the kind of people you want living in those deserted homes next to your subdivision.
That's one problem, but I mean, it's, if they were going to develop it and continue it the way it was, that would be one thing. But I mean, if we end up with a place like what's it called, Eagle Creek up there, where there's 12,000 homes in an area up there. I mean, if you've got that there, the problem that you're going to have, number one, traffic-wise, is just astronomical. It's. I mean, there's no way in the world that you could deal with that amount of people in there in Grandy. And if you live in Grandy, you know exactly what I'm talking about, because you don't leave your house on the weekend.
Let me ask you a question. If and this is all hypothetical, if a developer came in and duplicated Soundside Estates, same size lots, homes, things like that, would
that would be absolutely fine. The only thing I have an argument with is the condos. I don't, and it's only strictly because of where my house is located and where the original plan was showing the condos were going. Because we didn't have a problem with the development going in. It was strictly that they were going to put these condos right where they were going to put the condos at, which when you have, what was that, 90 acres or 100 acres, they had plenty of room to move those condos to a different location. However, Mr. Rose at the time said, we're not moving anything. We're not going to work with you at all.
Well, taking into consideration that even though condos might have been planned behind your house, that's not to say that condos might be where they go with it. In
right.
other words, if
it was a development just like ours, I don't think anybody in the development would have a problem with that. But the way the lots are laid off back there, and as close as they are, it doesn't seem as though if they let that go and let it go the way that it is, unless it's written down to the developer that we all have 3/4 acre lots. Now, if they were to take that and divide it into 3/4 acre lots back in there, then that would be livable.
Let me move this along if I can, then, because that's somewhat hypothetical. Okay. And that would be an issue we'd have to discuss at the time if it came up. Right. It's zoned as it's zoned. Right now the lots are about 5,000 square feet. That's not going to change no matter what we do here tonight. I've got some other folks that I'm sure want to give an impression to. Unless somebody has a specifically different question for Mr. Battaglia, let's let him sit down and let some of the other folks speak.
Thank you.
Okay, and then we'll have a chance to discuss this and ask more questions later. Mr. Jenkins, Mr. Wood, or whoever wants to come speak. Come on up and give your name and address and tell us what you'd like to say. Thanks.
Hi, I'm Dan Hedberg. I'm owner of one of the condo units. One of the things I just want the board to understand, my understanding of how the homeowners association is set up right now, there really would be no obstacle other than an automatic revision if the board lifts this overlay tonight, since the current homeowners really have no say in the homeowners association. Currently, it's fully controlled by the various banks. They would be able to change that on their own effectively without the residents getting a vote per se. My understanding is once the development is built out enough, I think somebody mentioned 50%, that's when the homeowners would start to get a seat or a vote in the homeowners association. But as it's currently set up, the residents effectively get no say. So if you eliminate the overlay tonight, then the homeowners association representing the banks would most likely go ahead and just lift that and change the covenants. So that's the way my understanding is. And then back to just some representations regarding the meetings that have been held with the various banks. I was at the last homeowners meeting where there was discussions about the possibility of things not being able to continue forever the way they are at the current level of funding. And what we were effectively told was, don't be surprised, residents, if we can't continue to make these payments forever if we're not able to sell this development to another competing developer. We weren't, in fact, told that the Bissell Group was going to propose something at the next board meeting or was going to make a discrete proposal on a certain date. It was a very nebulous, sometime in the future we may have to walk away from the payments that we're making that are continuing to fund the maintenance for the development as it sits now. So I guess my concern is I've never felt like the banks have reached out specifically to the residents and have tried to make a direct resolution. They've told us that at some point they may be bringing this to the board. They never told us when. They've never, to use, I think, one of your phrase, extended an olive branch to the residents and say, let's try to negotiate a workable settlement or come to some kind of agreement on this. I think my perspective as a owner, I certainly don't want the development to fall into disarray. I'd say the banks have been doing actually a fairly good job from a financial perspective of not only making their payments, but I think when there's been shortfalls in our budget from what the contributions have been made by the residents, I think some of the banks have actually been paying more than what they had to keep the development up in good maintenance condition. So I applaud the banks for doing that. And I can understand from their perspective, they feel like they can't find a knight in shining armor developer to come over and take over the entire development. But another thing I'd like the board to understand is there doesn't appear to be any attempt by the banks to market the homes as they exist now, to market the vacant condos as they exist now to be able to sell those. I think the banks feel like that's not our obligation. That's not what we do. I think they've even hinted that there may be some prohibitions on them acting as marketers. But my understanding, for example, is there have been many offers made to purchase the condominiums that are vacant, and I think they have turned a lot of those down. So the statements that I've heard about that it's impossible to market and impossible to sell the existing homes and the existing condos in the development, I think those are really statements saying we can't find a developer that's ready to buy this as it's currently situated now, not necessarily we can't sell individual condos, we can't sell individual vacant homes. But I can imagine they may have a point that if they haven't been able to find a developer to sell it right now with the current age restriction, then they're doing what they can do. But and I'm also a resident of the condo, so just to give you a little more information about what happened with that water burst. I think that was a function of the vacant condo. The heat was set down to 50 degrees, and there was inadequate insulation installed up there. That's what caused the pipe burst. I was there when it happened. I got to see the lack of insulation there. So I don't know if it was something that was being allowed to decay or, poor maintenance that really followed through that. It was probably from the temperature being too low, an extremely cold winter, and then inadequate insulation from the first part. But anyone on the board have any questions?
Any other questions?
I have a question. I'm going to switch sides with you.
Okay.
You come up here, I'll go out there. If you were me sitting here, knowing what you know, knowing where everybody knows what the market is, what would you do? Would you lift the restriction and hope Waterside Village would turn around and make it more marketable, or would you just leave it like it is and let it just sit there and deteriorate?
That's a rough situation. I mean, you've got a public interest standard that may rise higher than the level of some of the residents that are here that are concerned about the age restriction. The one suggestion I would encourage you to think about is someone had suggested perhaps saying we could table the lifting of the overlay until there has been some communication by the bank to the residents. I feel like effectively that hasn't happened. There has been some attempts at communication of saying at some point we're going to do this. We're going to either walk away financially and you guys are going to be on your own and you're going to have a worst case scenario where you can't fund this, or they've kind of implied at some time we might seek the board to eliminate the overlay. But there's not been any, what label I would put on, meaningful attempt by the banks to reach out to the residents and try to reach some kind of a resolution. That's what I would ask you to consider tonight.
I'd like to ask, since you've given this a lot of thought, what is resolution? What would you expect the bank to do to resolve this issue? Because it seems it's 55 or not 55. So if it's not 55, what would you expect from the bank? If it stays 55, can they walk away from the amenities, the whatever they're paying?
They being Wells Fargo.
Wells Fargo?
I don't know. I guess it would depend upon what the documents call for, the governing documents, the restrictive covenants, and the role that Wachovia or Wells Fargo now has taken as successor to the developer, I suppose.
What would happen if they did? What would happen to that development if they walked away?
Well, let me inject one comment about that. I'll ask Mr. McCree to also verify this. I believe Wachovia took title to the common area and the properties they own in the name of Waterside Villages LLC, which is essentially a shell corporation. It has no assets in it but the property. And looking at that from my standpoint, and you may want to address this too, is if the bank is really not involved, they may be speaking for it because they own that corporation, but I'm not sure there would be anything there to go after if they were to do that.
And that may well be the case, given that they have, as you say, have created a separate limited liability corporation for Waterside Villages property.
So let me ask a question. Like our ordinances on grass cutting and things of that nature, they would not be required under that ordinance to keep the grass mowed in the common areas and stuff?
I think certainly the owner of the property could be required to comply with the ordinance. Our general method of collecting the monies we expend for keeping grass cut in those instances is a lien upon the property, and then we collect it in the nature of a tax. But of course, if common property has no value, there is nothing to collect. So I suspect we would have to look then at seeking to collect it in some other manner through civil action in court.
How's that working up in Moyock, where we're trying to get the railroad to do their grass cutting for the last 3 years? How's that going?
As a practical matter, it's fairly difficult to
get it done.
Look at selling railroad track to collect a lien for grass cut.
Sure. But we don't really know who owns that railroad track. There's never been a definitive declaration of who actually owns that area we're talking about. DOT says they don't own it. Railroad says they don't own it.
Why don't you go claim it?
Mr. Chairman, I want to ask.
Mr. Gilbert's done that.
Along with what Commissioner Neal was talking about, even if we put something out there to make them cut the grass, it gets to be 3 feet high before it gets in violation. And I just don't see that being a win situation that they just let the grounds or the grass or the pool or whatever, I'm sorry?
It'll just go to...
That's it. I just don't, I don't know. I'm just trying to put myself in your shoes, Golden Rule 101. I'm stumped.
It'd be nice to know what the worst case scenario would be if if all the residents had to attempt to finance all of that maintenance themselves. We've asked the bank if they would provide us some information along those lines. Apparently, they were intending to give some communication along those lines to us, and then some newspaper articles came out, and then all of a sudden the lines of communication just dropped.
I think
completely.
Mr. Bissell just said, I think, correct me, you say 150 a year or 50 a year, something like that, maintain the ground.
150 is the number that I heard floating.
Well, if we can move on to something. I know Mr. Jenkins is here, and his wife is the resident's representative on the homeowner association. Perhaps he can address that.
My name is John Jenkins, and I am a homeowner at Waterside Villages. I'll try to answer as many questions as I can. We do have a homeowners association that Wachovia is the declarant or the owner. And we do have a budget, and it's a fairly substantial budget. And in that budget, the maintaining of the grounds is covered. Now, what my understanding is, as far as addressing the question, is what if Wachovia stopped doing their part? The homeowners now are contributing to a fairly substantial homeowners association budget, which covers quite a bit of maintenance within the community. Now, Wachovia is being the declarant. They do own the clubhouse and the grill and the pool. So that monies from the HOA do not go towards that. So, sure, they could walk away and that would just be left in disrepair, or they could just, bolt the doors. As far as the grass cutting, if everybody continues to maintain their HOA dues, we have funds there that could continue to do that. But getting back to the issue of how the homeowners feel there, we all are sort of, upset like everybody else with this economy that the development hasn't progressed. And, of course, you can see that all over the entire United States. But we have heard, as far as age-restricted developments around the country, that they're being very successful. We had one owner that has a second unit in Pennsylvania, and he says there's almost a waiting list to get into his age-restricted development. And I see a lot of advertisement on television about ones in Chesapeake as well. So I don't know what the answer is, except that if we did have an offer of a developer to come in and had a plan for our development that was, say, minus the age restriction, we'd love to hear it, because I think everybody in our development wants it to go forward. We don't want it to just stagnate. But we'd like to hear, reasons why it would need to be lifted to go forward. Where there are, like you said, there's a lot of people in the country that would like an age-restricted, and there's not that many people in Grandy that are going to, move into an age-restricted area. But, we'd like to see a plan. Some communications with Wachovia that would say, okay, here we've got somebody interested. Our only stumbling block is this. This is what we propose. But we've not seen, I don't know what goes on behind the scenes as far as marketing our development. Just haven't seen it. So I really don't know what's going on that, okay, we've got some developers or we don't have some developers. I just don't know what they're doing. But if we had some more communications, I think that would be helpful too.
Any questions for Mr. Jenkins?
One other thing, the HOA would not be turned over, in our covenants, the HOA would not be turned over to us until the development was 75% complete. I do know that.
Or what, 40 years or something?
Yeah, it may have a date on that as well.
Yeah, Slick Attorney wrote those. Rosado, I think was his name. I remember him.
Yeah, I think you're correct.
Mr. Jenkins, one question, if I could. You just said that you are open-minded enough, and probably the people who are living there, that if the bank would come and talk to them, that give them some idea, exactly what's going on, that you all might favor lifting that age restriction?
I think we're all open-minded because it's been long enough now that, feelings have kind of shifted a little bit. I think everybody there bought into this because of the age restriction. I know I did. We just wanted to, in our time in our life, that's where we wanted to be, in an age-restricted community. But, we don't want to see our development go down the hill either.
Exactly.
So, but if we, had a plan, if somebody had a viable plan that really wanted to come in there and do that, we'd certainly be open-minded to it. At least that's my feelings.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
I have one more question. Mr. Woody, I guess. I'm sorry.
Well, Mr. Wood, did you want to speak?
Yes, please.
Oh, okay.
Let Mr. Wood speak, and then if you give your name and address, please, and then we can discuss it with everybody.
My name is Alan Wood. I own a home in Waterside Villages. And my home there has been on the market for 2.5 years, I think. And my realtor assures me that that house is never going to sell until that 55 is lifted. We've lost half a dozen opportunities to sell that house to somebody who was 54, or they weren't teenagers, but they weren't 55 either. And when they found that they couldn't move there unless they were 55, that was the end of the interest in the home.
If you wouldn't mind, I'd like you to kind of describe for the commissioners your house, too, because I can't believe that it wouldn't sell, with the appropriate...
Well, it was the model home in Waterside Villages. Mm-hmm. We bought it as a model and leased it back to the developer. My $625,000 investment is now worth about $250,000.
And has a pool?
Has a pool.
An outdoor
grill,
kitchen?
Outdoor kitchen.
Fully furnished?
Fully furnished.
Water views?
From upstairs.
I'd love it myself. And I'm old enough to live there.
But she's not concerned about the same things I'm concerned about necessarily. She just wants to sell the property and earn her living.
Right.
But she's anxiously awaiting the outcome of this meeting. I'd like to be able to tell her that something is going to happen to have discussion about removing that age restriction.
Mm-hmm. Well, one comment I would make about that, keep in mind that if the Board of Commissioners decides to change this text, to enforce this text amendment, make this change, that doesn't lift the age restriction.
I understand.
That's still between you homeowners and Waterside Villages LLC, which is essentially the homeowners association at this point. And for them to do that, as Mr. McCree pointed out, is probably going to subject them to substantial amount of potential litigation because you have recourse. The homeowners do. So from discussions that I had with them, essentially they were just saying we want to be in a position where if somebody comes forward and wants to buy it, a developer they're talking about, because they have no interest in marketing individual houses, but if a developer wants to come and buy it, we want to be able to tell them that, well, with the right deal, then we've got something we can go to the homeowners with and perhaps negotiate, and then we've got the ability to lift it. It wouldn't make sense for them to open that nest of snakes if they didn't have to, and so, essentially I think that's what we're looking at is if there's an option that may allow them to find a buyer for it, great, that might work. But no matter what we do here tonight, it's not going to change the situation with Waterside and the age restriction.
I understand.
Okay. Any questions from Mr. Wood?
I don't have any questions. Just another question for our county attorney and Mr. Woody.
I'd like to ask Mr. Bissell a question, if I might.
Okay.
Mr. Bissell, you've heard, the residents speak there. Do you think that it would be possible for you to go back as representing the interest of the bank and ask them to meet with them, and perhaps they could come back and work this thing out, and we could legitimately change this, and it would be agreeable to everyone?
I would certainly be willing to go to them and ask for that.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think, just in the interest of fairness to everyone and to the bank itself, I'd love to see this property move forward. No one wants to see it, fall in disarray and ruin the way it's going right now. And if, we might be able to do something like that and pretty much get this done in one fell swoop, work it out with the residents, because it seems that they want to, and I think it would probably work something out where we could lift this and it'd be agreeable to everyone. I wouldn't mind making that motion.
I have some questions first.
Okay.
Mr. Woody and Mr. McCree, let's say it's on. Thank you. Let's say we lift the restriction tonight. Wachovia still has an obligation to the residents, the people here tonight, to satisfy them as far as that age restriction. We don't have anything to do with between Wachovia and the current homeowners and the covenants that were written. That's something these people still have leverage with the bank. Is that true?
That's probably a good question.
I'm sorry?
That's probably,
I guess I would say to the extent that the governing documents of the community and the association provide for 55-year and older residency, or the age for residency, then it's certainly going to necessitate Wachovia being able to come to some agreement for the amendment of those documents, first of all. And then secondly, as I said earlier, there's going to have to be some way that Wachovia is going to be able to satisfy those property owners and what rights they may have based upon the documents that were represented to them when they bought property there as a 55-year and older community. So it seems to me there would be at least two hurdles, I guess, that Wells Fargo, Wachovia Waterside Villages LLC would have to overcome before there would be a change practically in the age restriction.
So we can lift the age restriction tonight, and then Wachovia and the homeowners will have to, I think you used the word litigation, they would have to come to some type of an agreement that satisfies, that's when I want to make sure these people have some type of leverage. When we lift this, they still have a say.
I think we've heard that the documents, first of all, the governing documents of the community would have to be changed before there could be someone younger than 55 residing there.
So we could approve this age restriction, lifting it tonight. They can start the marketing process for the undeveloped property, and then the next step would be the bank and the homeowners to work out their agreement.
I would say that's a reasonable scenario. The other thing is to keep in mind, again, that this is a county-wide application. I mean, I understand that it does apply to this particular community, but this ordinance amendment would have county-wide application in effect.
I just want to add one thing to that. I was on the board when this was approved back in 2006, and the sole consideration for the 55 was because of the adequate schools facility. That's the only reason the developer came forward and asked for the 55 restriction, because it wouldn't put children in the school and it would allow him to develop this property. It wasn't because of some genius marketing decision. It was simply because the Board of Commissioners at that time was not going to approve it because of the adequate facilities ordinance that would not have allowed this subdivision to go forward because of the school situation. That's exactly why this age restriction is here. It wasn't because they wanted it to market it. It was to get around the rules at the time so that they could move forward with the subdivision. And then it hasn't worked. It went under. And it's under now.
What concerns me is the longer we let it drag out, the worse it's going to get, and I think you get to a point of no return. That, there still has to be an agreement. And again, you're my neighbor. I want to make sure that you're taken care of, but I don't want to go, right now the meter's kind of doing like this, and that's the part that concerns me, especially with wintertime coming on. We've got fences falling in. We've got grass that could grow up. Then, you've got your clubhouse. So there's a lot of things, and I empathize with your position. I really do.
I have a question, too. This is from Mr. Woody. My understanding is that the whole reason this came about initially was we planned to clean up the UDO and get rid of this quirky type zoning that's in there. And this overlay was destined to go away as part of that rewrite process. And we're trying to figure out a way to address it in the meanwhile and accomplish what needs to be done to get this subdivision back underway. Is that correct?
Yes, Wachovia approached us about amending this particular ordinance option, and so I think they initiated this specific discussion. But directly answer your question, also, we have contemplated not moving that RET option forward as a zoning option because it has not been used, and the one time it has, to this point, has not been successful. So we do not anticipate moving that forward as a development option.
And another reason it was used is because I believe it gave you extra density.
For the conversion of an RV park, it did. Right. That's correct.
Question for Mr. McCree, going on what Mr. Petrie said, but it's also possible, if this is passed tonight, Wachovia could tomorrow lift the age restriction by they being the declarant of the homeowners association. Is that not true?
Again, I don't have the benefit of the documents in front of me. If the documents provide for the declarant and or successor to the developer to have the majority vote in some way, then I guess that would be possible. They still would be faced with that other potential problem.
But we know they've got more money to pay attorneys than the residents do.
Well, actually, it's Wachovia is the largest of the homeowners, but I don't think they have a majority of them. I think really you'd have all three of the large ones together, but I think they would certainly work in concert to accomplish the same thing. And that's the issue is there a reason to do it if you don't have to, or what would they accomplish by doing it? But they certainly could do it. I'm familiar with the documents, and it's written that way.
Well, I still think that we could give it a couple of weeks and let Mr. Bissell go back, let the bank come in and talk to the individual homeowners together and let them come to a settlement among themselves and then bring it back to us, and then we could remove that age restriction in a fairness act to everyone.
Yeah. I think we did that 2 months ago. Didn't we go through the same exercise, go back and talk to them? And you were here.
Not on this issue.
Yeah, exactly this issue.
It was coming forward on the agenda, and I think it was advised that they need to not put it on the agenda and go back and discuss with the homeowners. And I don't think it was ever on our actual board agenda, but it was coming forward, and it was expressly told to go back and discuss. And I don't know whether that happened or not.
Well, I attended some of those meetings. I think Butch came, and in fact, Mr. Midget, chairman of the planning board, was there. And in discussing with the people that were there, basically, Wachovia's, or here again, Waterside Village LLC's position, but as told to us by Representative Wachovia, is they really didn't have anything to negotiate with. Wells Fargo told them they're pulling the plug if they don't do something to make it marketable. And they said, this is the only thing we can do to make it marketable. And if we can't market it, they're not going to put any more money into it. And that's where we arrived at the situation, people thinking they were going to walk away. And the last conversation that I had with them, which was, a month and a half ago, essentially said that they would go ahead, they would give back part of the density, which is part of the Walnut Island thing we're talking about, is that property that was there that was to convey to Waterside Villages would have been developable, which they're not going to do, and that they will continue to maintain it in exchange for being able to market it. So to me, that looked like the best concession they could make with the resources they had. Now, if they had an offer from a developer, it would appear that they would then have something they could work with. But Waterside Villages LLC does not have any resources, so I don't know what it would negotiate with. Any other questions?
And I'd be surprised if they would risk litigation rather than come into the homeowners to try to work something out with, unless they had an offer in hand that was something that they could show, and this is how we want to move forward, and this is the vision.
My interest is getting the county out of it, so that's the reason we brought it forward tonight. And unless we have any other questions, I'll close the public hearing, and we can.
I got one more question.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm confused. Sorry. When I vote on people's lives and their livelihood and their homes, I'm torn here. All right, the way I understand it, Wachovia is the majority of the votes. Is that right?
Not exactly. They are the largest shareholder, or largest property holder, but I think they have less than a 50% interest.
All right,
because there are other large investors.
Let's change it from this side.
The banks, let's put it that way, the investors
The banks are the
by far
majority. The people sitting here tonight that have invested in their retirement community are the minority.
A woeful minority, as a matter of fact.
Okay, let's make sure we've established that. Now, according to what Mr. McCree says, they still have rights based on the covenants, that there's some type of satisfaction that these people deserve. Okay. My question is the majority of these banks go together, do these people, even though they don't have the number of votes, do they still have some type of leverage for satisfaction, even though they're outvoted?
Again, I think Waterside Villages LLC, I guess we'll call that what Wachovia has created to hold this property, is going to have to address those concerns. Otherwise, it would be my opinion, they'd be subject to potential litigation from persons who bought property based upon certain representations made to them at the time of their purchase.
I just don't want to make sure these people aren't strong-armed and outvoted. That's my main concern.
Well, if the LLC is just a shell right now with no assets, then they could sue all they wanted to, and they could get no relief because there was nothing there.
Is that true?
I guess if they're seeking damages and the LLC has no assets, I would say it would probably be judgment proof.
But it has the property.
But it has property, sure. Yeah. It has those lots that it owns.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question. We've been focusing on Waterside Villages, and there's also this other property, Mill Landing. Ben, I guess this is, or Mr. Wooding, this is kind of directed to you. That property is just proposed. It hasn't been developed, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, so the possibility of them coming back and having that rezoned or replatted is a possibility. Is that not where it wouldn't be age restricted, or?
It doesn't even have it's not even far enough along to have vested rights for an age-restricted community at this point.
Okay, so mainly it's the Waterside Villages that's affected by this.
The other tract is just an undeveloped tract at this point.
If the bankers and the homeowners can find some accord, if it's, as one of the homeowners suggested, lowering the age to, 45 or something. I mean, we've got retired military that, retire from the military at 45, that there might be some accord, that they can find some common ground there. I'm with Commissioner Martin as far as letting them go back and have some conversations, maybe give them, a 2-week, 3-week period to have those conversations.
If I just interject, that piece of property you're asking about, that was the one that was coming forward to be a mobile home park across from the Point Golf Club.
RV park.
RV park. Well, I've got one of those where I live, and it's turned into a mobile home park at the end of the island. And that is the precise property, because he cannot market it or sell it, that was coming back to try to turn into a campground across from the Point Golf Course, where everybody showed up at that community meeting in opposition. That in fact, is the property you're asking about.
Okay, so lifting that restriction will let him move forward with that, or?
No, it will allow him to market it as something else that he can actually market. The reason he was trying to do the mobile home or the campground is because he cannot sell it or do anything with it because of the age restriction.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Can I ask a question to follow up on that? Well, what is to prevent him, that individual, from asking this board to rescind that approval and then coming in with another plan?
He could file a zoning map amendment and go through that process.
But the reason he won't do that is because of the density he was given.
Wants to keep it.
Well, I don't know if anybody on this board has noticed or not, but there ain't a whole lot going on in this county for people for jobs, and we better start thinking and forget about the density right now and start thinking about, are people in this county going to go to work? And if we're the hindrance keeping people from developing some property to put some people to work, then this board better wake up. And that includes all six of us up here.
I concur with the property there at Waterside. The houses, we know what happens to homes that don't have utilities in place, because it's happening to the historic school down at Jarvisburg. Without the utilities in place, it's deteriorating. Every time we spend money fixing it up and it goes back. These houses are going to turn into junk sitting there with nobody occupying them.
It don't matter who comes and make an offer. Nothing's going to.
Exactly
2
the point.
weeks is what the board's got to have to resolve this. Yeah, I'm okay to take a vote tonight, but guys, we've got to think outside of the box and allow people to start doing some stuff. There's people hurting in this county because of our restrictions where they can't build anything. We've got electricians, plumbers, carpenters, roofers, just all kinds of contractors that would love to see something happen and love to see some homes start being built somewhere, whether it's on the Outer Banks or whether it's here on the mainland. But sometimes government's got to get the heck out of the way instead of being in the middle of everything and let some people make some business decisions.
Well, let me go back to the mention of the 2 weeks again, the last meeting they had at Waterside relative to this. They asked for suggestions, and my suggestion was figure out what it is you want and go to Wachovia and ask them if they'll do that. And as far as I know, nobody ever came up with a concerted plan of this is what we want, and therefore Wachovia was powerless to address it. So unless they could get their act together in that period of time and go back and do it, we'll be in exactly the same situation 6 weeks from now that we were 6 weeks ago, which is waiting for somebody to make their mind up. I think the county ought to, as I said, just get out of the way, let the homeowners and Waterside Villages LLC iron it out between them. And if they aren't happy with the result, then they've got civil action that they can take to resolve that. But the county needs to get out of the way and let it move on. We're in the way, exactly like you said. We've met the enemy, and he's us.
Mr. Rohr, 2 weeks is not long to ask, and if we can get the homeowners, they're here, they're representative. Mr. Bissell commented and said, yes, he could do that. He doesn't have an objection for 2 weeks, and I'd like to make a motion that we just extend this.
Okay, does anybody have any other further questions from Mr. Bissell or anybody else that addressed us tonight? Go ahead.
Got a motion on the floor, Mr. Chairman.
I haven't closed the public hearing yet.
He didn't say close the public hearing. He said extend the public hearing, continue the public hearing.
No, well, I didn't hear that part of it. I just said you make a motion to extend it for 2 weeks.
I made a motion to extend and not close this public hearing so that we could hear from it in 2 weeks.
That's an appropriate motion?
Let me look at your rules just a moment.
Are we going to have discussion?
Yeah, we'll have discussion.
You can call the question at any time, can you not, sir?
I want to find out if the motion to extend is appropriate for that.
Did the motion receive a second?
Well, I will make a second to that if it's
Okay.
permissible, that we extend the decision until the 17th, giving the homeowners the opportunity to discuss one last opportunity with the banks. And I would have to say it's a beautiful property, and I'm not 55 yet, but 47, I'd love to move out there too.
It is beautiful.
I think the motion is appropriate, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, all right. We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Do we have discussion?
Okay. Go ahead and discuss it.
Know what that means? 2 weeks. Make some phone calls. Because in 2 weeks, we're going to make a decision. A or B.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes, sir.
In this motion, and the way I understand it, because, we're a diverse group at Waterside Villages, is the bank going to set up, are you going to, Mr. Bissell, get the bank to set up a meeting with us and we can sit down with them?
Well, as I told Commissioner Martin, I would make the request. I have very limited authority as to what I can promise, but I will certainly do my best to get something set up.
I see a hand in the back. We can entertain any more.
Well, we have a motion, a second to continue,
question.
and that would be out of order.
Okay. Well, we have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like nay.
Nay.
Okay, seems to carry for 2 weeks.
And at that time, could you please, the county attorney could look at the covenants and tell us exactly, what rights they do have and how they are protected? If you could get a copy of those covenants, I'd certainly appreciate.
Yes,
Yeah.
I can do that.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Item 7, public hearing and action on dissolution.
In the early 1980s, and this is what I've learned from reviewing the files held by the county with regard to the original creation of Walnut Island Sanitary District. In the early 1980s, there was a concern expressed from various health officials and state environmental officials with regard to the inability of the camper section in Walnut Island to treat wastewater. There seemed to have been either at the time the inability, or definitely the inability of the developer to have completed the wastewater treatment system proposed for that area. Some documents seem to indicate due to bankruptcy. On March 30th, 1983, following a petition from resident freeholders within that camper section of Walnut Island, the Board of Commissioners adopted a resolution creating, under statute, Walnut Island Sanitary District for the purpose of operating and maintaining a wastewater treatment system. Thereafter, a wastewater treatment system was implemented within Walnut Island Sanitary District, and the Sanitary District proceeded to operate as a separate independent unit of local government, which a sanitary district is within the confines of the county. Going forward, after some years of operation, for whatever reason, the wastewater treatment system apparently became into disrepair, and in recent years caused again concern being expressed by various state agencies and others that the system was inadequate and needed to be repaired. Thereafter, the Walnut Island Sanitary District sought and received grants from the Rural Center and from Clean Water Management Trust Fund to provide for the construction of a new collection system, and also assessed resident freeholders or property owners within the sanitary district boundaries to help pay for the additional funds, provide additional funds for the payment of the collection system. As all that was going on, and this is all kind of attached to Waterside Villages, which we just discussed, the developer of Waterside Villages entered into an agreement with Walnut Island Sanitary District whereby the developer agreed to accept up to 30,000 gallons per day of wastewater flow into the Waterside Villages treatment plant for treatment and disposal, and then in exchange for some other things from Walnut Island Sanitary District, in particular a tract of land 4.7 acres in size, which, as I understand it, is a disposal field for Walnut Island Sanitary District's wastewater treatment facility and happens to be located right in the middle of Waterside Villages development. For whatever reason, that contract or agreement either expired or certainly was not followed through, and then in ensuing years, the development, as we've already heard some about tonight, failed, with several banks and other property owners taking over various properties within Waterside Villages. Wachovia Bank, now Waterside Villages LLC, is actually the owner of the Waterside Villages wastewater treatment plant facility. Walnut Island Sanitary District, being in dire need of having their wastewater treated, was unable to come to some agreement with Waterside Villages LLC, and implemented or instituted its eminent domain power to take the Waterside Villages wastewater treatment plant and facilities. During the course of that litigation, a settlement agreement was entered into between Waterside Villages LLC and or Wachovia Bank, now Wells Fargo, in which, among other things, the parties agreed that the Waterside Villages wastewater treatment plant facility would be conveyed to Currituck County, and that Walnut Island Sanitary District would convey to Wachovia and or Waterside Villages LLC its 4.7 acres of land in Waterside Villages, and the county would agree to operate and maintain the Waterside Villages wastewater treatment plant as a county-owned facility and treat up to 30,000 gallons per day of wastewater from Walnut Island Sanitary District and up to 90,000 gallons per day of wastewater from what has started to be and will ultimately become waterside villages under its development plan. That now has come to a point where there is a question as to whether it is necessary or viable for the Walnut Island Sanitary District to continue to operate as a separate independent political subdivision of the state of North Carolina as a sanitary district, inasmuch as Currituck County would become the owner and operator and provider of wastewater for what is now the sanitary district and for waterside villages. Accordingly, under Section 130A-85 of the North Carolina General Statutes, the county has instituted this process for consideration of the dissolution of Walnut Island Sanitary District. That statute requires and provides for, first of all, a notice of public hearing, and it be placed in a paper with general circulation within the county to be published for 3 weeks prior to a public hearing, which has been noticed for tonight at this time. And then there must be a certain findings made by the Board of Commissioners following the public hearing in order to move forward with a dissolution resolution. The statute 138-85 provides that the Board of Commissioners may dissolve a sanitary district if it finds, or if in fact the sanitary district consists of 500 or less resident freeholders, there is no outstanding bonded indebtedness maintained by the sanitary district, the county agrees to pay and assume any other outstanding legal indebtedness of the sanitary district. The Board of Commissioners adopts a plan providing for continued operation and provision of all services previously performed or rendered to the sanitary district, again in this case as wastewater collection, treatment, and disposal service. And the Board of Commissioners adopts a resolution ultimately finding that the interests of the citizens of the sanitary district and the county, that's an important note, the interest of those in the county as well, will be best served if the operation and services provided by the sanitary district were to be provided by the Board of Commissioners and or the county. You have before you a resolution which sets out these particular statutory requirements, the history that I've just gone over, as well as findings that in this particular instance conditions would exist that would allow for the dissolution of the sanitary district should you choose to do that tonight or at a later date. There's also attached as Exhibit A to the proposed resolution a plan for continued operation and services related to wastewater treatment, collection, and disposal in former Walnut Island Sanitary District service area, which I'll just quickly go over. Bottom line is it would be anticipated and planned that the continued operation, maintenance, and service for wastewater treatment within Walnut Island Sanitary District's former jurisdiction would continue unimpeded, and that Currituck County would either through its own employees and offices provide for the management and administration of the wastewater treatment, collection, treatment, and disposal within the Walnut Island Sanitary District area, and integrated as part of the county's Public Utilities Department, or as another option could and perhaps will consider continuing the current contract with Envirotech Incorporated in North Carolina, which is the current contracted provider and manager for the Walnut Island Sanitary District system, as well as the billing agent for the system. So those would be one of two options that the county could consider as it moves forward. There is also provided within the resolution and set forth in the plan for continued operation a transition anticipated for 30 days. So the resolution as proposed before you would provide that the dissolution would be effective as of 11:59 p.m. on October 31st, the county becoming the owner of all assets as provided by statute of Walnut Island Sanitary District beginning that on November 1st, 2011. Staff believes that 30 days will give the county staff adequate opportunity and time to take those steps necessary to assume the assets of Walnut Island Sanitary District should you decide to dissolve the district, as well as to allow for the consideration of whether we will operate the facilities and provide the service within Walnut Island Sanitary District through counties, staffing, and integration as part of its Public Utilities Department, or whether we would look to continue to contract with an outside provider for a limited period of time, provide for those services. And then lastly, an opportunity to take a look more closely at what the current rate structure is within Walnut Island Sanitary District to make sure that the appropriate rate to support the operation of the system is set, which of course ultimately would be set by this board, who will become the governing body for what was at one time Walnut Island Sanitary District, either the governing body as you are with all the county's utility systems, or another option that might be available and could be considered during the transition time is whether the county might want to consider creating a service district for some part of Walnut Island and or waterside villages. But that's another issue that can be considered during the transition. So that's a quick and brief rundown of where we are and why we're here. Mr. Chairman, I'd be glad to answer any questions, but it is now before the Board of Commissioners for public hearing for you to receive comments from the public as to whether it is in the best interest of persons within Walnut Island Sanitary District and the county at large for this sanitary district to be dissolved and Currituck County to become the provider of wastewater service within what is now Walnut Island Sanitary District.
How many slides was that? Did you count them?
It was a lot.
Okay, well, let's open the public hearing. The only person I have signed up tonight is Ms. Kay Hanna. Still here? Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Give us your name and address, please.
I'm Kay Hanna, and my husband and I own property on Walnut Island. I'm here to state that we would like to have the county take over the complete infrastructure and all of the Walnut Island Sanitary District. I believe that way we could get some businesses in Grandy, which we badly need, and I think it would be a help to the community. I've had other people on Walnut Island that it's not in the district. They have told me, they said, if we could get on that sewage plant, we would gladly pay the $5,000 to get on it. I mean, people are really wanting to get on that plant if it can be expanded. But I've got one thing I want. I don't want this board to forget Walnut Island. I would like to see them take an active part in our community and helping us get it cleaned up. Because we're hearing about waterside villages being a retirement community. We've got the waterway through Walnut Island. We could have a beautiful retirement community there. We could have homes for just young couples starting out. But we do need help from the county on Walnut Island. But like I say, I am here stating that I and my husband would like for you to take over the whole system. And other people were going to join me tonight, but we did have a death on Walnut Island, and most of the members that were coming have attended the viewing. And that's all I've got to say.
Anybody have any questions of Ms. Hanna? Thank you, Ms. Hanna. And I understand, too, I think all of us got an email from Teresa McPherson, who's president of the Walnut Island Association, expressing pretty much the same sentiments. And I believe you're a member of the board of the Sanitation District as well.
Yes, I am, but I'm here as a property owner, not a board.
All right, sir. I noticed you had your hand up, sir. Did you want to make a comment as part of this hearing?
Yeah, my name is Ted Logue, and I hadn't planned on speaking because Teresa and Becky and everyone else is coming up here. But I live back in Inlet Lane, and I'm back in the camper section, and I would support the dissolution of the sanitation district we have there now, and that the county take over. And I must say it's a good system too. Even under 3 foot of water, it worked fine. It worked the whole time. Everything did work. You're getting a good deal.
All right, thank you. Does anybody else wish to address this open hearing? All right, I close the public hearing.
I have a question. Based on our last agenda item, has staff gone down and held meetings with the people of Walnut Island to get their concurrence on this?
We could hold off for 2 weeks and let them do that if you'd like to do that.
Just a question. Has staff gone and held meetings in Walnut Island to discuss this?
We have had I have had meetings with and conversations with the attorney for the sanitary district. We did have a meeting here in the courthouse about a month or so ago. Commissioner Petrie was present at that meeting. While that was a meeting that was originally planned to take place between the Walnut Island Sanitary District Board and its attorney, there were a number of residents of Walnut Island Sanitary District that attended that meeting as well here in the conference room, and we ended up having a free flow and exchange of ideas and conversation of their interests. So, I mean, to that extent, there has been some talk and discussion. Of course, the Walnut Island Property Owners Association, by and through its president, Teresa McPherson, has also had some involvement. I'm not sure to what extent Commissioner Petrie has had sit-down meetings with folks in there, although I am aware from talking with him that he has had ongoing conversation with persons within that community regarding this possibility.
Well, I've had plenty of conversation with folks down there, and they are in favor of us taking over. I was just kind of making a point, that's all. Thank you.
Point well taken. There being no further questions, let's close the public hearing. I'm open for a motion. I'd like to make a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to adopt the resolution dissolving Walnut Island Sanitary District pursuant to Section 130A-85 of the General Statutes of North Carolina.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Thank you. Item number 9, appointment to the Whalehead Board of Trustees. Mr. O'Neill, I believe that's your...
Chairman, I had a recommendation from the Whalehead Trust to appoint Mr. Carl Ross, and that's my nomination.
Second. We have a motion second to appoint Mr. Carl Ross to the Whalehead Board of Trustees. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 10, consideration of awarding bids for the Maple Commerce Park roads and utilities. That would be Mr. Scanlon.
Mr. Chairman, we're bringing forth tonight for your consideration and hopeful approval the bid recommendations. We have bid out building the road that would extend from Aviation Parkway, the road now that's the entrance to Cooperative Extension, back through the Commerce Park and out towards the airport terminal building, that portion of the road, to include the installation of water lines and wastewater lines, to include lot line swells throughout the parcels within the Commerce Park, as well as the retention pond in the Commerce Park. We're pleased to present to you tonight that we had the bid opening. We did have more than 3 bidders. The bid actually came in less than what the engineering projection was by a couple $100,000. We're very pleased with that. And staff is asking tonight for a recommendation to approve the bid to Barnhill Contracting in the amount of $1,812,629. And I'd also like to comment that we did receive a $500,000 grant from Department of Commerce, the board's effort from the trip they took to Raleigh, that would help fund a portion of this program. So we'd be happy to answer any questions, but staff is looking for approval for Barnhill.
Any questions?
One question. I've had some people ask me with the roundabout at the old entrance that's being built now, or the trash dump trucks that go back to the transfer station, are they expected to use that roundabout?
They are not.
We're going to use another entrance.
There will be a heavier vehicle entrance that will be installed for not only trash trucks, but people going back in the Commerce Park. But no, that's pedestrian automobile is what's going through the roundabout.
I wanted to ask that question so it would be out there, the answer. Thank you, Mr. Scanlon.
Any other questions? Motion?
Move for approval.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 11, consent agenda. And there's an item that we neglected to add earlier on there. There's resolution requesting FEMA assistance for cleaning ditches, Rolling Creek, Indiantown Creek, and Hog Bridge. Any objections to adding that to the consent agenda?
I move for approval with that addition.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. All opposed? Thought it was unanimous. Motion carries. Commissioners report. Ms. Gilbert.
I would just like to remind everybody that this Saturday from 10 until 3 we have the traditional Bark in the Park activities going on at Maple Park, and also the airport is sponsoring in conjunction with the Bark in the Park vintage cars, airplane rides. So there's lots of activities. The Boy Scouts will be there. There is churches. There's vendors. So I just encourage you to come out and enjoy the airport and the Maple Park and support a great cause at the Bark in the Park for the animals.
Thank you very much. Mr. Petrie.
I think I'll pass tonight. I've had enough fun.
Mr. O'Neill.
I'm just going to open up an old wound. How about the ditch in Moyock that I asked about earlier? I'm starting to get heat again in Moyock about the fact that it's not being mowed.
Put going up there.
And I'd just like to know if it's ever going to happen. We had a private citizen mow it last time out of his own expense. And I understand it's in part of the Moyock drainage district, so funds could be expended from that district to maintain that ditch, but I understand they decided not to do that. So I want to know what, as Mr. Petrie would say, we got Plan A. What's Plan B?
Well, I think we have finally identified who the owner of the right-of-way is, which railroad entity. We had them expressing cooperation, and even at one point the general manager of that particular entity thanking us for raising the issue so that he could carry it on to those above him. To have it included in his operational budget, as I recall, he stated at the time that they continued to take it out of his budget, and he felt like this was now going to be an opportunity for him to have it returned. That obviously has not happened. So we will just have to proceed on as we were on the track originally after we identified them to utilize our nuisance ordinance.
Can you identify who the railroad is in case someone in the press would be so kind as to report that?
I'm going to recall from memory, I believe it was Chesapeake and Albemarle, which is actually owned by an entity, Rail America, whose offices are in Texas now, I believe.
The press could call you for...
Just asking in case somebody were to write a article so that they could see themselves in the newspaper, maybe a little embarrassment would help resolve the issue. Just in case now, if it were to happen.
But of course, I only we notified them and spoken with them regarding the grass and the shrubbery, bushes, trees, whatever it is that's growing up, but also the concern expressed with regard to the improper disposal of railroad ties that were dropped down into the ditch itself.
That number's 232-0300 if you need it for tomorrow.
And you would have that information if someone were to write a story and wanted
Yes.
to get that information.
In addition to that, I had addressed that with the road front that DOT is not maintaining. That's from the curb point from the Food Lion up to the Currituck Grains. That's the same thing, Mr. Manager, if you could address that with DOT.
Mr. McCree just raised a good point. They drop ties on every ditch throughout Currituck County. I've got a ditch that's 3/4 of a mile long almost. It goes through our property, and it's full of old railroad ties where they just throw them over. And I have to clean them out ourselves, so I know what you're talking about. Last week I had a chance to go out to Shawboro Elementary School and speak to some of the students out there, and I got a very intriguing question because I was telling them about the difference in county government and federal and state government. I said, we're the only branch of government that performs all three functions of government: judiciary, legislative, and executive. And this little kid asked me, he said, are you the president? I said, no, there's 7 presidents of Currituck County. There's also 7 congressmen. There's 7 judges. There's 7 state assembly people or members of the General Assembly.
I want to raise.
But I bring that point up because these kids are interested in government, and I think we've gone through several generations of people that are apathetic toward government, and I think that was brought about, and Mr. Martin, you can probably address this as a history teacher, when we dropped the requirement that civics be taught in our schools, and we lost focus of talking about our country, our form of government, and the importance of it. And I'm glad to see that interest starting to be regenerated again, because if these young people don't realize where we came from, then they don't know where we're going.
Thank you. Mr. Martin?
Well said.
Well, to carry this out, we do not cover that essential in the lower grades, but at the high school level, we do cover, local government. A segment of it is taught by Ms. Jarvis, and she does a great job with it. I'd just like to say bring your dogs to the park on Saturday. There will be all types of judging going on for the meanest, the ugliest, the best dancer, etc. You have a dog that can win a prize. So all you kids, grab hold of mom and dad and bring them to the park. And hey, you might even go on up to the airport and get a plane ride. That's all I have.
Good. Another event going on this Friday at the at Corolla is the Rotary Club Currituck. It's a Wild Goose Chase and Donut Dash. Don't ask me how that works, but I know if you eat donuts, you get credit on your time, so you don't really have to run or even walk very far if you can eat a lot of donuts. But it should be fun. Starts at 9 out at Corolla, right at the Whaley Club, Heritage Park. If you get a chance, come out for that. And we had an interesting conversation. I was at a Board of Education meeting here not too long ago talking with some of the teachers, and we were discussing the idea of having interns work with commissioners to learn more about participation in government. And we discussed that some time ago, but never went anywhere. That's something I'd like to see the possibility of happening again, because I think it is important that young folks learn what goes on in government, how decisions are reached, how things are enacted, because that prepares them for being active participants later on in life. Anyway, that's all I have. Mr. Scanlon?
Nothing tonight, thank you.
Oh, very good. There being no further business, do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
To adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.